shine. Coach the past scale, that's a mental way. Turning the hustle into something great. It's not just about the strength you hold, but how the inner grip begins to unfold. This is the prospect, hard task ground, where the secrets of the field are finally found. Building the athlete from the bone to the soul, taking the vision and reaching the goal.
Did it kick him out?
All right, there we are. Am I back? Okay, I'm back. Welcome to the Prospect Podcast. Coach Schumann here. It's great to have you guys on again today. As always, I got Coach D to my bottom left, and then we have Dr. Dillon Martinez to my bottom right, who's been our monthly recurring guest discussing speed, the latest research in that, latest techniques. And I'll just let him, obviously, as always, give a little brief intro on himself, just so we can dive into anything. So if anyone's under a rock or has not seen him on the show, they can hear from him. So, Doc, just kind of give a little quick intro, as always, just so we know, and then a little bit of the latest stuff that you've been working on.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me back, y'all. So this is the third time, so hopefully third time's a charm, and it's the best one. My name is Dillon Martinez. I'm a professor at Winona State University. Just got the promotion to associate professor, so happy about that. And I run our adapted physical education teacher preparation program. I teach in our coaching minor, our general PE minor. I teach doctoral classes. I teach master's classes. And my whole thing is education. And specifically, I focus on how sport coaching is an educational practice and how the pedagogy and tech are the teaching practices that we use in the classroom can be extrapolated and should be extrapolated onto the field quarter pitch to help coaches be better teachers. So that's kind of my area of expertise, and from a like writing and research side. And then I've also been a track coach for a long time. I've coached state champ sprinters and high jumpers, and I love all things coaching. I played college football. So I got thoughts on a whole lot of stuff. If you want to talk AI, I was just consulting the state of Minnesota on how they can start implementing AI stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about today.
Cool. AI. Well, that's my forte there.
Oh shit!
You're gonna get yourself in a whole lot of trouble if you discuss AI with me, because I've got a lot of thoughts on it. And I am. By the way, after we get off this podcast, I'm gonna send you, or I'm gonna add you as a member to one of these a software I developed. And I've been slowly rolling it out and adding people, but basically, it takes your videos it'll measure the speed that you're moving at.
I've been seeing it.
Yeah. So now you need to, I think, still with AI, give it enough information to make sure. Okay, I think the information so it frames it properly. Yep. But it has all the things, and you could actually now I added where you could do VPT stuff, and then soon I'll be able to hopefully get it where I can integrate it into different tools.
I would love to be able to play around with that.
Yeah. I would just love your feedback, because there's obviously, as you build these things, there's going to be flaws. You know what I mean? So
yep.
And I've already seen like some things that it does sometimes, like, especially when the software engine now is built, primarily with AI.
Yep.
And with me obviously guiding it through the different things, but it's really interesting. I mean, it's done everything from MPH to force output to to timing like splits. My favorite one of all is I did Quincy Willis's 400, which
Yep.
it didn't have the 100 splits mapped out. You know what I'm saying? Like, because as it's going around the track, it's trying to split it,
Yep.
but it's the AI is not splitting it correctly without lines, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So it's trying to estimate based off of, you know what I mean? So it gets one split ridiculously fast, and, you know. But it's so funny because the feedback, I love the track enthusiasts. The track world is so funny. The football world is way more forgiving. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? Way
Well, I
more
mean,
forgiving.
that's what track is. It's a precise thing.
Track people get so angry. And I, I had to block a guy from where was he from? He was from like Tahiti, I think he was from. Not Tahiti. It starts with a T. I can't remember now. But I had to block him because he was like trying to debate me. I'm like, I'm not debating you like the nuance of whether it's a tenth off here or that,
Right.
you know what I mean? I'm trying to build the software so I can put it out there and see as it starts to improve, which is doing tremendous job of, right? And like
That's so
radically
cool.
improving. For the first time I did it, it was like I was like, that doesn't make sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But then, you know, like the easy ones it nails really well are the 100-meter dash, as you would expect,
Yep.
the 40-yard dash. It's really good at that. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
A- And then it's I think it's really good at like it's getting really good at like taking a 60-meter out of a 100-meter dash.
Yeah.
Obviously without a line there, it could be
Makes a
slightly
difference.
off here or there, but it's pretty close. Like I would say within a half tenth or so. But it's so funny. They're like guys will be like, what's his name? Sue Bingham or the sprinter from China. They're like his world record in the 60 was like I don't remember what it was 6'2" something, and you have him in 100 meters at like 6'3" something. Well, I'm like, yeah, these guys are within a tenth. They're running 9'8" and 100. They're
Yeah.
within a tenth range. You know what I mean? Like, but it's very interesting the whole space because as you start to, it really comes down to for me not the timing of the result, meaning like this guy's, obviously that's what people
Yeah.
will gravitate towards on social media, right? They want to
Yep.
see, oh, do you break down this guy's time and break down this guy's force and output? And I did throwing passes and everything, um, but what's really interesting is for training standpoint.
Right.
So it's one thing to do it with people that are, and I'm getting to my question in a second, but it's one thing to do it when you're taking random stuff and you're timing. That's really more for like to show people, what an MPH
Yep.
is, what those kind. But when you take the same thing that someone's doing and they're doing it over and over again, and I'll even take track out, right? I'll say like a guy rolling on a sprint out for as a quarterback, right? Timing the time it takes him to get out there and throw the ball and how many miles per hour he's moving from rep to rep could be very valuable. And I'm also able to
Yeah.
produce like an arc of his rollout.
Yep.
So you could be like, okay, well, I really want you at these degrees arc and you're kind of too flat, right? And so it's one thing to tell them they're too flat. It's another thing to be able to show them. So what I look at it as what AI is going to be able to do is the old dartfish. Remember the
Yep.
dartfish, which was
Hmm.
really the first to do all that kind of stuff
Yep.
with an algorithm, which I think was good. This is going to be able to allow people to do it a lot faster and to take it home with them. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And then with AI, you could actually generate an explanation of what like what you should do. So I could take that arc and it could take the information of what's the proper arc, let's say on a rollout, right? And it could then say, hey, here's some things you could do to improve it through AI, right? And then from that you can then as a coach be like, okay, And then it could also give you a list of possible exercises you could do to improve it.
Mm-hmm.
So as a coach, you can get like, you could just, I think it opens up your thought process of what's possible. It doesn't take away your ability to coach. It just opens up more areas for you to be able to be like, you know what? Like I've always done this for a rollout to get them to improve. You know, like the simple one is always I put the cones out to build that arc, right? Well, you know, that's kind of like, you know, off feel, right? You may
Yep.
be able to actually be able to overlay that and eventually be able to overlay and make that a little more precise, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the timing gates, you can start to time those things. You can put a gate on one side of the other and put a gate on the other side because he's got to come through that same spot and time
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
And then you could see it match up. So anyway, so my point is you brought up AI, which Derek would tell you was your first mistake. Um, uh, I'm curious because you're consulting on it. Like what's the world of what like you're thinking about how this stuff can start to really help coaches in improving their athletes beyond what we already know, right?
So I think the lowest hanging fruit is so on X or on any social platform, you're going to see coaches posting all of these numbers that they've been collecting in their training sessions. And right now, I think a lot of coaches mainly use these numbers, and I have too in the past, to just show off. Like, here's how
Right.
fast my kids are. Here's how strong my kids are. Here's how the program has been working. Okay, those are good data points to have. But then, what are you then using those data points to do? Are you just using it to confirm something, or are you using it to try to help inform what you're going to do next? And I think a lot of times, so what I've used AI for along these lines in the past is when I was coaching track, I would time everything we did in practice. So then I could get a mean and an average of how much decrease in times my athletes all had. Then I could figure out what of my athletes are not progressing at the same rate the other athletes on the team are. And then I could go to that athlete and I say, hey, what's going on? So I've used this, for example, to catch a kid who told me he wasn't playing any other sports during track. And I said, hey, man, you're supposed to be one of the fastest kids on the team. You're progressing less by a significant margin than everybody else. What's going on? I had a meeting with him and his family. Turns out he's been playing soccer a bunch outside of track practice. And I suck at math. I'm not a math guy. I don't math in public. I don't do anything like that. If you ask me to add two numbers right now, I will not do it. And so all the research I ever do is qualitative work. So it's all words and interviews and stuff like that. I can use AI very proficiently though, and I know what I'm looking for. So I can use it to then take all of my data and then say, here's what's going on. I know the words for all of the fancy stat that can be done to find these answers I'm looking for. I just can't really do them, again, because I don't like numbers. So I can just have AI do it for me, and then it will give me a really good visual that I can then see and then make informed decisions off for how I'm going to go about making changes to my practice plan.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I think that's where the value really lies, right? And generating the data points is one thing, but you could really make you could show improvements from workout to workout, or declines from workout to workout. And I think that point on soccer is a big deal because most athletes, even through high school, deal with, especially a lot of times your better athletes, they're playing multiple, doing a couple things at a time, right?
Yep.
So they might be training, playing a sport, and you can really figure that out and draw that line to where they got to back off, like, and those numbers help from that standpoint. I think
Exactly, because you can show them like, here's
Yep.
where you could be, here's where everybody else is, but here's where you are. Are you seeing that doing all of this stuff is actually hindering your performance? It's making you worse. It's making you more likely to get injured. And sometimes just having those hard data points are so helpful for them to see. But if you're bad at math like I am,
Right.
You're just going to have to rely on saying things, whereas I don't like to ever just rely on somebody believing something I say because it's coming from my mouth. I want it to either come from numbers or somebody else's thoughts that I'm then validating, if that makes sense.
Right.
Makes
Right.
makes it
Which is also
makes it
like
yeah.
what you're, and for the most part, what you're validating is validation already, right? Because you're using credible, right, academia. Like we've always looked at that and said that, like, you know, when you're using viable, bona fide, proven, structured research, right? We're not just
Yeah.
Wikipedia in this thing over here. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like there's
Yeah.
actually something viable to it, right? Like a lot of that, you know, and it goes back to like the teaching aspect of things, right? Like when I would do it and guys would, you know, hey, you got to cite something and it needs to be a credible source, right? Like where you're coming from is extremely important, and what you put your name attached to is extremely important. And I think today in social media, so many people are just, you know, oh, let me just, you know, retweet this, or let me just like post this. And have you really done the research into what you're reposting, right? Because go back a couple tweets or posts and look at what they said. Is it still viable with what's coming up now, right? So I think that one extra level of kind of filter that you can go through can just change the name of the game when it comes to validation.
Exactly.
There's no doubt. It's in training, you know, one of the things with um the whole thing about the speed philosophy that we understand to be true is that rest is really important, right? And it's very difficult to develop speed if there's not a consistent protocol as far as how you're able to go about doing things. And the reason why soccer, basketball, baseball, maybe not as much because although they stand around a lot, which may tire the legs out, they may not be generating as much force, so they might be less of an issue if you're working them. Um, but you know, I would say maybe lacrosse might fall in this too. So if you got soccer, basketball, lacrosse, sports where they might go and play like multiple tournament games in a weekend, um, and then you're trying to develop speed for them or explosion for them, it becomes very difficult. Now the sport arguers are like, well, we take care of that on the court, and it's like, no, you take care of maybe general conditioning, if I was to even like say if it's something, right? Um, because there's even though in sports like basketball and soccer and lacrosse, there's tons of explosive moments, but there's a lot of jogging back and forth that goes on, right? So jogging back to get back in court. So that there's a conditioning element, you know, and which is almost a little bit of a deconditioning of overall speed, right? And so there's kind of those things are a little bit at loggerheads. So throughout a let's say you're doing a whole soccer season and people are like, I don't know why I'm not getting faster, you know, per se. Um, the reason is like actual speed is not going to be developed that way. Now, I do see people quickness wise, I could see because in short spurts, maybe, you know, because there's less stress on it, you might be able to continue to develop that without placing large amount of stresses on the body. But actual speed, which sprinting and change the direction in sprinting are so dynamic that the loads on the body are so high and you can't do it. I have someone that you know I'm helping, I give them a program, uh, uh and she has a track athlete, um but her father's the team doesn't actually have a track team, but the father's training her, and you know I know him really well, and I gave him the program that I follow, and she's doing great with it. But the problem is that she'll come out of these soccer tournaments because she's also doing soccer, and she won't be able to train for a couple days after that because the knee's bothering her or something, right? And so you know I just tell them you just got to back off. Like you might be able to do maybe some pre-sprinting drills, you know, without aggravating it, but you're not going to be able to like get out. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. I'm curious because this must be something you deal with all the time, right? How do we? And I'm sure me and Derek have talked about this a lot. We don't know how we get around it, like, and get them better at the same time. Like, I just don't know how you get around it. Like you may get certain spurts of time where you can get them better, and then they retract. And I'm curious your thoughts on that.
So I think when it comes to doing less, we have such a grind culture in athletics, and a lot of the parents of kids who are now like in youth sports have been indoctrinated in the grind culture. So that's how they think they're going to help their kid be successful, which
Yep.
is, I mean, if I am a parent, I want my daughters to be so successful, and I'm going to do what I think is best for them. And if I've grown up thinking and being told, well, the only way to be really good at it is to put your 10,000 hours in and to just grind through everything, and hard work is the best way. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. What about when talent does work hard? No one ever talks about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
we have to be okay.
And look, we
with
just
doing-
had that discussion yesterday, right, Doc? We had it yesterday talking about like coaching high level talent. I don't want to cut you off, but I'm just saying, like, some guys can't coach high level talent. Like, they just don't know what to do with it, right? So that's a whole different discussion of coaching high level talent.
Right. But the point is, we have to be okay with letting our athletes do less, because that's when, I mean, just think about sleep, for example. If sleep is when all of the neural pathways develop and when recovery happens, that is also going to be somewhat extrapolated to just rest in general. But if we're always having our kids pounded into the dirt playing sports or playing games over and over and over and over again, in the hope that they're going to get a Division I scholarship, it's just not the move anymore. I think at this point we have a basic enough understanding of what actually moves the needle, and what a lot of parents think moves the needle isn't actually it, and it's actually probably doing more harm. And the kids are getting burnt out by the time they even get to college. They get injured their first season, can't play anyway.
That's a huge point. So
I see them burnt out by the time they get to me in high school.
Yep.
well, and yeah, I agree, Derek. The thing that's really, so one of the things I think about is what speed and strength development does is build, if you're doing it right, is build your body, right? So theoretically, okay, not these guys who do crazy loads with bad form,
Yep.
but if everything is done for the most part correctly, speed development, strength development builds your body. Okay. Yep. When you play sports excessively, that tears down your body. So you have to be able to be able to recover. And it is, and I do understand from the parent side, like they don't put the schedule out there. You know what I'm saying? Like the organization puts
it comes
and
from
not
the top down.
And it's not even the organization. In all fairness, it's not even necessarily the club's fault either. They belong to this baseball association, this basketball, league.
Yep.
This
They're just
whatever
doing
that
too
is.
much. There's too much going on. There's too much within one season.
Correct. When they put the stuff out, and even myself, like we run tournaments, we're even rethinking how we're doing it. Like we're rethinking it because we just don't love the load that it's placing on athletes. Okay,
Yep.
Tournaments in particular.
Yep.
Now, some tournaments have done some better things. I think, like I see a lot more of like 2 games, and then
For what sport is he talking about?
Games, and then if you play in 2 games and you play in if you make it to a championship, you play in that, right? So maybe you play 3.
Is this for basketball?
Basketball, soccer. Some of them are doing it's 7-on-7. Some of them are doing like a 2-game play, and then if you're like win your little division, you play a 3rd game, right? Which is better than the 7 or 8 games you might play, right? In the old way, if you keep moving on, like the guys who were better were getting beat down more. You know what I mean? And we used to talk about with 7-on-7. Sometimes we were just like, you know what? If we bow out in the first round, that would be great. You know what I mean? Because like guys are shutting down mentally and physically, and what are we doing at that point, right? So, but I think that's it the parents may not even say, "Hey, I want to play a baseball game every day." They may just be part of a system.
Right. Exactly.
I listen to parents in my own kids' age group, like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, our I got to go to a tournament this whole week, and we start at 7, won't be done till like 8 p.m."
Right.
Like I already hear it in his voice, so he's like, "Well, that's kind of just how the tournament is scheduled, right? So we're stuck. It's not like I have a if I want my kid to play against some better competition, this is the crappy world that I'm kind of in, right?
Right.
So I do think that that's a can be a difficult thing. Like it's a balancing act. The good thing is this, I think there's a lot of pushback against the current methodologies. People like Tony, like stuff that we're doing really do a great job of pushing back and asking questions about this stuff,
Yeah.
and by asking questions about it, I think we're getting in a better situation where I think it's not going to happen right away, but in the next 5 years, I do think you'll get certain things start to change about it, and parents saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Like I've done it. I pulled my kid out of travel baseball in the way that it was.
Right.
I'm just like, why am I playing? Why do I have to play fall baseball just because I'm on a travel baseball team?
Right. You
Like,
don't.
can't I just play on this travel team in the
And what
spring?"
you just said is such a good point. You said, "Why do I have to?" I feel like so many people just think this is what I have to do. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
The youth sport culture is this. Well, this is the way it is, so this is what I have to do. No, you don't.
No. No. Like I'm actually looking at, and my wife thinks I'm crazy because every time I don't like something, I just form my own organization in it. And Derek, no, it's like
I like
I'm
that.
I'm probably torturing my own self from that standpoint, but because it just makes me have to increase the amount of involvement with more and more people. Um, but I think that I like for me, like baseball. I love baseball in the spring. It's a ton of fun. My
Yeah.
my kid really likes it, and he happens to have some good skill sets there, and a lot of his friends like it. But a lot of his friends also play football in the fall, and they're in this like they're playing tackle football. I've had kids come to tackle games after playing a baseball game, standing on their feet for
Yeah.
whatever it is, an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Because
Yeah.
that's how baseball works. That's just how it is. It's not a negative on it. It's just that's the nature of the sport. So and they come and play a football game. I don't even know how they do it, by the way.
Yeah.
I said no, I'm not doing it. But like my thought process, I want to create a baseball club team that just plays in the spring, just like my little league is, right? Why can't I have that team just play in the spring? Why did we have to make it that it has to be the fall? Now, soccer was the first to really do it, it like all year round. Basketball's always had an element of it, but basketball's always really been more focused outside of the fall. There are people that play that but outside of the fall. But basketball is always available. I think even though
Right.
AAU is important, basketball coaches I've noticed do not put pressure on you from season to season. So you may not be on that A team anymore. There may be kids that are playing on the A team, but they'll find a club team for you. You know what I mean? That you could play with. That maybe you're only there in the spring and in the summer. You know what I mean? And you don't have you. I found basketball guys are a little bit better with that. Baseball, they try to have you in there both seasons. Soccer, forget it. Like soccer is just year round. Like so
Yep.
many soccer kids that are great soccer, like they don't even play any other sports anymore. Some of them
Or they're playing multiple sports on top
at
of
the
something.
same. Well, they're all playing multiple sports at the same time.
Yep.
But it's just a matter how intense it is, and that's the issue. The issue is
Right.
there are some sports that are less. Soccer is really intense.
Yeah.
That's a full field game. Okay. Basketball's in tighter spaces. Baseball, you're standing more, right? The loads are I would say lesser, maybe not jumping wise of basketball, but soccer sprinting wise you're talking a large space a field. Lacrosse is similar, but you're not going at the same speed. Soccer's the one that's going the fastest. Without the less equipment to have, the faster you're going, right? So, I would love to hear your thoughts on like if we gave you the magic wand because you are so brilliant, Doc. What are some things you would do here?
I would say so. If you have a strong, so like Wisconsin, for example, has a very good high school sport culture, and I would say you play your high school sports during their season, and that's it. So in the summer, if you want to play travel baseball, travel basketball, that's fine. You can do whatever you want in the summer. But during the school year proper, from let's just say even 6th grade through 12th grade, in the fall, you play whatever sport is offered in the fall. Same thing in the winter, same thing in the spring. And then in the summer, you can do whatever you want. But there can't be all of this overlap that we're just asking for kids to just get ground into absolutely nothing. Because ultimately, you got to think about what is the main thing here? What is the purpose of athletics? And that answer or that question is going to be answered differently by everybody who answers it. For me, though, my purpose was to get a football scholarship at the college level as high as I could play. For other people, it's basketball, trying to do the same thing. For track, same thing. If that's the main thing, though, and that is what you're trying to do, really take a hard look. And maybe it's not. You're trying to just have a good social experience, and you're using athletics to foster that, which is great as well.
Right.
But what is the purpose of all this extra added stress on the family, on the kid, all the pressure that it creates from a financial perspective? Because youth sports are borderline unaffordable.
If you're a middle of the road income family, right? You're a middle of the road income family. Like, are you going to start budgeting and say, hey, do we keep the lights on or do we go to this tournament this weekend?
Right. Exactly.
Right?
So that's the question families need to, and I think that they don't, because again, it goes back to the thing that they just think this is what they have to do to love their kids well. What is the purpose of why you are having your kid participate in athletics? Is what I would be asking. And then again, if I had the magic wand, you participate in the sport in one sport at a time.
And I also think, Doc, that could, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, that might change over time. I mean, look, as a 3rd and 4th grader, you might be just talking about, hey, let's get them involved in sports so they understand, being part of a team, or some discipline of like, hey, make sure you have your stuff ready for practice on this time, just scheduling, general type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, now we get into this sport. Maybe he or she shows some promise in this. Okay, well, let's dial this up a little bit. They like it, right? Like when they come home and, hey, go play outside or go play or whatever, like maybe they start like doing something within that sport itself, or, you know what I mean? Like on their own without me telling, okay, maybe they like this a little bit. Now, okay, now they have some talent in this, right? So, okay, now it's gone from, hey, let's just get them involved in sports and learn how to be a part of a team, to, hey, maybe they want to use this like to go and play at another level or something of that nature, where as you progress through those years of middle school into high school, you start looking at it. Yeah, maybe a scholarship is now the goal, or playing at the next level is a goal. So those things, I think, constantly need to be reevaluated as well within the family.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I agree completely.
I think there's a couple of important things that are maybe byproducts of this, as someone who lives it every day. Number one, Derek brought up a great point on playing. So almost nobody just plays, okay? Once they get to a certain age, literally their playing is, oh, I have a flag football game. That's my play time, right? So to me, rec sports, not travel sports, but some sort of rec sports, in my head, I think, even though it's competitive, there's, a score, I guess, you say at the end. But it's kind of like after school playtime, like your 60 minutes of playtime, right? So I don't look at that, even though I think your point is really valid. And in high school, I think there's no way that you can't do that, because if you're playing multiple sports in high school, have hit puberty. and you're
Yeah.
physically stronger, and you have to balance out the performance side with the development side. I'm not meaning development like throwing passes development. I mean like physical development,
Yep.
strength and speed, right? Building your body up. So you have to balance that. So I think it's very, very hard to do multiple sports. At a young age, you're able to do it. I think from a rec standpoint, I think when you get into, like I said, there's 3 levels. If you're someone that's rec or local travel, which is really just what we used to call it's glorified rec. Okay, I mean people get mad at me for saying it, but it's glorified rec. They're just a little bit better players. But the big difference is if you're doing regular, really traveling on the weekend, playing
Yep.
multiple things in a weekend, maybe a couple of games during a week. I agree. I think that might have to be your focus because and then strength and speed has to be your other element because I don't think you're going to be able to physically, even as a young kid, handle all that. I do think now, if it's in the same sport, I think it's fine. Like, if you play on a travel baseball team and then you play in a rec baseball team, it's kind of the same thing. One's during a week, one's on the weekend. You might be able, but I think the big thing is you got to try to figure out how you can get a day off a week of
At
nothing.
least.
At
Yeah.
least, yeah. And I'm saying one because I could just tell you as someone who's in it, whose kid like won't like he'll say he wants a day off, and then the day off he'll go and have a friend over, and they just play 4 hours of dunking on each other the
Right.
whole time.
But
I'm like,
that's
this
off.
was supposed to be a day.
That's off. Like free
Yeah,
play.
yes, yeah, it's off, but it's off. But I mean, I'm almost thinking like off, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
So
is
it's,
very hard to do. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you agree that's a version of off, right?
yeah.
Um, and it'd be great if you had a second one during the week, but it's so hard for a lot of parents to be able to do that. Just because I call it the rec side, which is really play. Like I almost think that they should have like, here's your schedule. If it's rec, like you map out the actual play days, and have rec is equals a play day, and then competitive days.
Yep.
And figure out what your how many competitive days you have in a week. Meaning, like this game really means something. You're really going to put a lot of effort into it. I mean, means something is relative at a youth age, but you know what I mean.
For sure.
Like higher competitive where your output's going to be higher, your mental strain, which is more important, your nervous system overload is going to be higher, right? And then just mapping those days, and then I think you will figure out, like in a lot of cases they got too many high nervous system days, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think they'd be shocked if they looked at it, like
Right.
is there, like with athletes you see, like do you have to like advise parent, like do you have conversations with them on this stuff?
Yeah. And it has never gone well.
Right.
But again, I'm trying to say, like, again, based on the practice data that I've collected, here's where your kid is, here's where the rest of the team is. There's no reason that your kid shouldn't be right where everybody else is, but they're not for what's going on. Like, well, he needs to get eyes on from the college scouts because he wants to play college soccer. So, well, he just told me last week he wants to play college track. Do you even know what your kid wants?
Right.
And like,
or that changes season to season, for Christ's sakes. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a young kid, Dave and I have discussed this over and over. We were multi-sport guys. We knew, like, by the time we were, into high school, like right around like sophomore, junior year, you knew probably what you were going to go to college for the most part, or at least where you were going to have a better shot of going or working within that sport itself. But be damned if I loved when football season ended, not because I hated the sport, but because that changeover to hoops was so like my body needed
Refreshing,
that. You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
right. Like, and guys would talk about like, don't worry, the football guys will be okay when they come to basketball because they've been playing football. Like, hell no, that's a totally different type of conditioning training, being prepared for it. Your body was like, thank God I don't have to put on pads and get smashed around anymore. I can go run up and down a court now and change it up, right? Like that was exciting. And yeah, halfway through basketball season, you're like, man, I can't wait for football again. But you know what? That was part of it too. Or hey, now I'm getting ready for track or lacrosse, right?
Yep.
I see it with my guys in high school as well, the guys that do multiple sports, which personally I think where I'm at now, like it's a lot more than other places where guys play multiple sports and they're not always the best player in that second or third sport, but they're doing it because they like it and because for them they enjoy that change, right? And be damned if college coaches don't come in and ask what other sports do they play, right? Like that specialization. And Greg Olson has talked about this on his podcast. I think he does a great job with this, not only with his kids being, multi-sport guys, but he talks about that aspect of it. Like maybe, okay, yes, in the immediate, the specialized kid is going to be better in that sport, but down the road, eventually that multi-sport guy is going to be in a better position because they have done multiple sports and not just specialized in whatever it is. And that could go as far as you're talking about physical aspect of it, where bodies are breaking down because they're always using the same muscles and doing the same things within that one sport. Or the mental side of it is I've just so been in this world of baseball only, basketball only, whatever only, that I am just burnt out and I don't want to do it anymore, right? Like I had an unfortunate situation this year, for example, with a kid who's always been a lacrosse player. Right. Like it was probably his one, with football being the two, but maybe like a 1A, 1B type of situation. He comes to high school, first couple of days of lacrosse practice, like, buddy, you're a freshman and you're going to be playing varsity. And he's like, you know what, coach, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want that grind of I've always done lacrosse and this and that and whatever. And now my parents have given me the option of like, you can do it or you cannot do it, but that's like your choice. And he said, I don't want to do it. And, those conversations were really hard, but he just chose not to because he was so burnt out from doing it over and over and over. And now he saw, the rise in the weight room for older guys now with high school football and how much more of an impact that has. He didn't want to miss that piece of it to go play something that he wasn't fully vested in. I give him credit on that, at least the maturity wise. He had the self-awareness to make that decision on his own. I would have pressed a little bit more to be like, hey, dude, you're still going to be a top 5 lacrosse player as a freshman. God only knows where you could go with that. And look, he might go back next year, but he at least needed that 1 year. And it's because he had always been doing it and, multiple seasons of it when it wasn't even lacrosse season and all that. It's unfortunate to see kids have to make those choices or feel that way about a sport, right? Just because they've just been pushed to do it for so long.
Yeah.
I'm curious because when we talk about it, you said the parent conversations don't always go well. It's funny because
I can imagine.
Football is lucky. I'll tell you where football is lucky.
Well, we talked about they were protected for a little while, right? Like it was protected a little bit.
Well, here's where football's lucky. Football's lucky because it's so physical that the majority of people are not trying to replicate that a second time in a year. So flag football is actually, they use as a football and it has principles of football, right? But it's really a different sport. So football players can actually play flag football. Unlike other sports like soccer, lacrosse, those sports are those sports, but you're actually playing a slightly different sport. So football players are lucky, and I think that it's a different. People always like, it's easy for football players. There is, because football's so physical, you can't just grind it out tackle. Winter, do it again. Spring, do it again. Summer, you're just
Well,
not going to do that. So
I mean, listen,
I
Dave,
think-
we've had those kids, right? That play tackle in the fall, right? They'll go and do whatever in the winter, and then they want to play spring tackle
I think it's
again.
crazy.
It's Looney Tunes.
Unless
they
your
think
school has
it's
spring ball where it's managed,
different.
Yeah, that's
State
different.
to state. Obviously, we've had this conversation too. Like Texas, okay, that might be a thing, right? But North Jersey or New Jersey, not a thing.
And you could argue, look, Texas is definitely survival of the fittest, right? So, there's sports are so important. It's compared to where it is, where in Wisconsin or New Jersey, it's elevated at levels that most people cannot comprehend. Okay, from the time they're very young, there is a survival of the fittest. What I would say to you is, Texas players, there's probably maybe more of them in the pros than anywhere else, partially because the population is so great. Okay, but if you look at it, one of the things I found so great about the book Friday Night Lights, okay, what it really, and people in the town didn't like it at the time, and I'm not talking about the series or the movie, the actual book. What made the book so interesting was that of all those stars, the only guy that went on really to play in college. Well, there's two guys. The one guy was the backup to Boobie Miles, who ended up becoming a star, and he played in college and the other was the kid who went to Harvard. All right, who the tight end Chavez, who played football there, but even, and that was a great football program. The majority of those kids were not done necessarily because they couldn't play at college, but because they were also done at that point from, in Texas's case, 14 years of football probably for a lot of those kids, right? That was what, 89, 90. You can only imagine 40 years later what the scale, and 35 years later what the scale is on that trending upward. And so I think it is really important, even when you are a great athlete, to manage your bodies. Like you see these, and I want to segue to this, right? You watch these track times that the Texas kids are running, and now Georgia also, and Florida. But the Texas in particular, with multiple guys running under 10 seconds in the 100. And then one of the interesting cases is the kid who ran last year from Duncanville, not this year, but last year, ran 9. I think it was, at the time, the fastest time was 9:92 or something. Went to Georgia on a full ride and hasn't eclipsed 10:3 this year, right? Because I think the level of training he was getting was really great. And what Georgia has done, unfortunately, I think with a lot of their sprinters, especially the male side, has continued to try and grind more out of them because they were such top level recruits. They did it with Matthew Bowling, okay, and I feel like their sprint coaches are under such pressure to turn these guys into Olympians that instead of backing off on them because they just ran these insane. If someone runs an insane time in high school, they reach a certain peak level. You need to. I think you need a recovery time from that peak level to then rebuild yourself in that freshman year. But what they're doing is, because of the pressure, obviously, to win, SEC championships, they're doubling. Exactly, Derek. They're doubling back down, and these guys are struggling to run times they ran in high school. Great athletes like Bolin, and I can't believe I forgot the Duncanville kids, but he's an unbelievable sprinter. And, that's also a big concern. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, when guys are reaching such high levels in high school, what do we do with them now in college? Track's an easy one because you see times, right? You see times, and you got to be like, well, guys run 9:90. Like, unless he's Usain Bolt, there's not much more to squeeze out. And how do we squeeze it out without getting them hurt, right? Or burning them out?
I think same thing that we've been talking about. This whole conversation is just being okay with less. If the main thing and the main objective is to squeeze out every bit of potentiality in a human body, we think, and we have been indoctrinated that more is always the answer. And if you are a college athlete in track and field and you are a sprinter, well, then you're probably going to be sprinting or running a lot because that's what you're getting paid to go to do. And that's what the coaches think that we need to do. When in actuality, you do need to do that. And you need to do a good, healthy amount of it, but you need to do a healthy amount of it. You don't just need to be doing it. You need to be healthy with how you go about doing all that.
And Doc, I'm curious to look at it from your perspective too. Is that more so on the coach to gauge that and kind of like, push here, but pull back here? How do you, because you're going to have athletes that are so indoctrinated with that grind, more type of mentality in their head that they're going to be pissed when you tell them, buddy, you got to dial it back. And like you said, you had a guy who was doing soccer, right, when he was telling you he wasn't, right? Or that type. How do you get that message across from your side when they're being pulled possibly in the other direction by mom or dad or, the uncle who wants to cash in
soccer,
on
it's the
NIL
club.
or
Soccer, it's
when
the
it
club.
comes to,
I'll tell you that.
like soccer,
My experience
no
is the
doubt.
club is pulling them in that direction.
And I'll tell you this, Dave, and just to add to your point with that, I'm now seeing, right, and this was the first time I saw this the other day, a flag football athletes, right? He plays flag football for a high level club team. They were going to a tournament that was like a national tournament or a national championship tournament or something. They had the opportunity to win something that they hadn't really won on a national level. And this kid had also during the week his state sectional track meet where he's a part of a 4x1 team. He's doing this, he's doing that. Now you're having the club flag coach say, hey, you've had an ankle, a little bit or whatever. I don't think you should run in this track meet, right, this week. So tell your coach no, because you're not going to be ready to go for the weekend and we need you and all of this type of, right? Now you have a 15, 16-year-old kid in the ultimate conundrum of what do I do? Because he's also a kid that cares about his teammates. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so it's not like he's like, all right, well, it's only the 4x1.
That's what they pull on, Derek.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, to put that kid in the situation, I think it's ridiculous. It's nonsense. It's asinine. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts of like, can you like this is what's happening, right? And now for that kid to have to make the decision, why can't I do both, right? Like, where's that? Or
because it's unhealthy.
This is
and
your. Go ahead.
As adults, and this will be my last point. So, I was talking with. I was talking with a superintendent at a school district that I used to teach at this last week. And I was like, so you've been a superintendent now for 4 years. Tell me something about your job that you didn't expect, an aspect of your job you didn't expect before you started working here. Because now I'm teaching doctorate level classes to people who are going to be superintendents. And it's like, I would like to be able to tell these people something of value because I don't have the value there. So he's like, honestly, the hardest part of my job is working with the adults.
No shit.
The kids are the best part and the easiest part. The hardest part about my job is dealing with the adults. And the adults in the education system and the adults in the youth sports system are doing a disservice to the kids and putting them in the situations that you just described. Because they're trying to, who knows what they're trying to do. But I don't think they've thought it all the way through. So to go back to the first point we made is I try to use the data that I collect in practices and the literature that is out there to help substantiate what the recommendations that I am making in the best interest of the kid. And sometimes, again, the parents have the best interest of their kid in their hearts, but the way they go about actually living that out sometimes isn't directly as in line with what is best practice actually. Because an adult should never tell a 15-year-old kid, you need to not run on the 4x1 school team because we are in a stupid flag football league. What is that going to do? It's going to do
Right.
nothing for that kid other than offer them more
And
opportunities.
how about this? Even swung it as far as saying, hey, if you play well in the tournament this weekend, you'll get more looks from colleges.
Which is a lie, flat out lie.
Straight bullshit. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And the kids
Again,
were
that's why I'm saying.
respectful,
That's
so
what I'm.
he didn't
That's
want
the
to do
point
it.
I'm trying to make
Oh
is
my
that
God.
the adults are doing a disservice to the kids most of the time.
My philosophy on the recruiting end on all of this, having literally been one of the gurus of this industry, that part of the industry for a long time in football,
Yep.
is that in today's world,
Mm-hmm.
there is no single event that you can go to that is going to impact or not impact your recruiting. Now, 10 years ago, at the height of when I was running a lot of events, it was a little different. And I think that's part of the problem today because high school athletes were recruited more. Okay. And because they were recruited more, you could theoretically, it doesn't mean it happened, you could theoretically nail a 40 and come out with something, even if the coaches weren't there, because you were recruiting an overabundance in high school kids. In the transfer portal era,
Yep.
that is not at all the truth. They're very targeted in their recruiting on high school athletes.
Yep.
They're going to certain places. It's very easy to see. Like when you watch in New Jersey, I watched the workouts of Bergen Catholic and St. Joe's line, which are some of the bigger programs, and there's others, but like some of the bigger programs in New Jersey, lined with 50 coaches there for that workout. That's a fact, okay? But that is not the case in almost all situations. And the most important thing to remember is that was at the high school, okay? That was a part of the high school system. So because they could be more targeted in recruiting, I think because of the new rules with the 5 for 5 and all that kind of stuff, I think they're going to go much more back to let me go and go to the places where I know that there are recruits. Go watch these kids, and obviously there are outliers at different schools, but like they'll go to that place too. Watch those kids because there's so many BS events out there. How do I know what to go to get information from? This is not 2014. Like when I Derek's heard me tell you this a million times. There was two groups of events. Like we ran like 100 events around the country. There was the Nike event. There was Under, and that was about it. Like there was nothing. There was nothing. Okay. Now every Tom, Dick, and Harry on every corner has a showcase, not just for football, but for every sport, right?
And now here's a question: what is the purpose of that showcase?
Now I don't even know what the purpose is. I honestly, like Derek's like, how come we don't run any more showcases anymore? I don't really understand, other than them competing against other kids, right? To measure yourself and to measure your own performance, your time or whatever. I don't know what the exact value is other than that, right? Anymore. The only thing
the value is the dollar amount associated with each kid that's coming in the door.
Oh yes, for that, absolutely. Yes. Well, I'm saying for the individual athlete, the only value is competition now. Literally is competition. It's not recruiting, right? So I always say, like, I have no problem with you once in a while going out and saying, hey, I want to measure myself competition-wise against other kids. There's tremendous value in that, right? But don't go there saying to yourself, this is going to get me recruited.
Yeah,
you're lying to yourself, and you're putting undue pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Just go out and compete. No doubt. If you're going to go to one of these things, go out and compete, do the best you can. That's it. You're not getting recruited from this stuff. People are like, everyone will pull out this once in a while nonsense thing of some kid that gets recruited.
The 1%.
That kid was already being looked at. It's not, and just because I've run all these things, I know this is someone who was in it. Like, I remember when I would, Rutgers coach would call me up and say, what were the times from this weekend? They do not do that anymore. Mm-hmm. They are not asking that anymore. Yep. They have plenty of things that can get them the stuff they need, and they want them to come to their campus. They would rather have the money of than giving it to somebody else. So they're not even going to entertain it because from the top down, it's going to be like, hey, get them to our camp, bring the
Yep.
money into our situation. Okay.
Exactly.
So why would we be helping these outside organizations? And so that's why I said, if you go because you want to compete and you love to compete, and you
Mm,
know, I don't know, 5 top kids might be there, and you want to measure yourself against those people for your own competition standpoint
yeah.
to measure, I perfectly understand that. Doing that every single weekend is ridiculous.
Yep.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. Those kind of things, like, and you could do that a couple of times in the spring and get probably most of what you want, to see where you're at, and then go back to working, and doing the best you can. I think you do that a few times, and that's it. I wanted to shift a little bit to. I know we're on the same page in this, so I don't think I have to ask for. But I wanted to shift to your research. The research you have that's getting published, um, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. Um, and talk about some of the stuff that you're currently looking at and researching.
So the one that just got accepted to the International Journal of Kinesiology in Higher Ed was based on my dissertation. So my dissertation was very long. So I took that and compressed it into actual like article journal or a journal article. And that was just on the results of the Delphi study that I did and looking at how successful speed coaches go about teaching the specialized skill of sprinting. And that was so fun to like open up my dissertation and actually do something useful with it. Obviously I turned it into the book, but I wanted to have a practitioner focused medium for my dissertation, which was the book. And then I wanted to have the academic backbone, if you will, and getting it published in a highly respected peer reviewed journal. So that has been fun. The peer reviewed journal submission publication process is very tedious and it takes a very long time. So this has been about a year in the making and in the works. And I just got the email 2 days ago that I got accepted for publication after probably 5 rounds of edits. So normally a journal, the way it works is they will have one peer reviewer. The journal that I was been working with has 2 separate peer reviewers. So you send the article in, it goes out to peer review, and each peer reviewer had a laundry list of things they wanted edited at the start, which is great. That's their job. So then each time I make both sets of edits, and that happened 3 times, and the lag time is crazy. So getting that across the finish line has been great. So that'll be like the quote unquote highest level that I've published at. But just today I put together a X thread of all of my publications that I've had. So it can be in one spot. So if somebody wants just to go through everything that I've ever written, it is right there and it's accessible for everybody. So I wanted to do that before we talked so I could talk about it today. So if there was, because I had somebody message me on Reddit once, because I usually post like my articles and stuff on Reddit as well. And then I like link to the book or link to my certification. And they're like, you're just trying to get people's money. And I was like, here are 20 articles that are free for you. So you can go ahead and I promise you, I'm not trying to do that. Here's everything that I've ever written for free that you can never buy one of my resources or really any other speed coaching resource and you'd be good. So I put that resource out there on X today. I think there are 15 publications altogether that are all free. So again, the thing that I care most about is helping adults make the best decisions to help kids. And if I can have a couple of resources that help move the needle in that direction, I will have done my job.
What is some of the pushback that you got back in your research that you had to clarify more in order to get it published? Was there anything from that standpoint that they challenged you on?
So most of it at that level is like formatting. But also there were times, again, so my dissertation is like 200 pages long. And this article is, I think, 6. So there would be times where there would be big gaps in the article because of how small it is. And they'd be like, okay, in paragraph 3, you said this. And then in paragraph 4, you said this. it seems like there should be a paragraph in between those two to help link it better. So stuff like that. So not necessarily pushback, but just like ease of reading, if you will, fluency, coherency, stuff like that.
Interesting. Some of the thing I think you talked a little bit about with your book, some of the things within the speed world that you think are, and maybe talk to Tony a little bit about this too, in your conversation, that are becoming more prevalent, becoming more important. What would you say those are? Because it's amazing. Obviously, something so theoretically simple as sprinting.
Yep.
There's always been continuous improvements in those areas.
Absolutely. So the thing that I'm most passionate about is ensuring that all of my athletes have proper sprinting technique. And there have been lots of conversations about and around the idea of, if an athlete is really fast, but they don't have proper technique, what do? Do you change their technique? And my response to that always is, if the things that are incorrect in the sprinting technique could possibly lead to injury, you need to change it. So for the biggest or most common issue I see is upper body mechanics being incorrect. So arm action that is coming way across the midline, for example, or way outside of past their hips, or away from their hips rather. And this causes a lot of upper body rotation at max velocity. And a little bit of that is good, but too much of that can be harmful. And it not only slows an athlete down, but it increases their likelihood of injury. And the thing that I say all the time is, it doesn't matter. I don't care how fast your fastest athlete is if they're injured, because then they can't be a fast athlete. They're on the sideline. So if us as coaches can help our athletes get faster and safer through proper technique training and teaching and coaching, we should be doing that. I don't think enough speed coaches do that. And in my study, it was the highest area of emphasis and highest level of agreement between the coaches through the 3 rounds of surveying that I did, that technique improvement was the foundation of their sprinting program.
Interesting. So from a technique standpoint, what are some of the most common things that you found lead to injury? So you mentioned arms going across. What does that actually do? Like, does that put your body out of whack? Does it have your foot placement there? Talk about some of those things and what are the effects from that flaw.
Yeah. So sprinting is such a coordination heavy movement. Your body is moving incredibly fast with incredibly high forces, and anything that is just even a little bit out of whack, it'll change where your foot lands in proportion or in alignment out too far in front of your center of mass. I don't know why I can't talk right now. Anytime your foot is landing too far out in front of your center of mass, you're putting unnecessary strain on your hamstrings. And everybody knows how frequently hamstring injuries happen. One of the studies that I like to quote was from, I never pronounce his last name right. I think it's just Brahms. He did a study in 2025 looking at soccer players, and he found that soccer players who scored poorly on a sprinting technique analysis had a 33% higher likelihood of injury in the future. And that's just from poor sprinting technique, specifically hamstring injury. There are some things that have been coached in the past, like paw the ground, for example, really emphasizing that the foot is pulling, where we don't want that to be the case. The foot is hitting the ground and pushing. Pulling is a hamstring movement. Pushing is a glute and quad movement. We want glute and quads active much more than we want the hamstring active. There's 3 hamstrings, there's 3 glutes and 4 quads. You want more muscles working. So putting our athletes in a better advantageous position to apply force is why technique is so important.
It's a great point. Everybody in the early 2000s talked about pawing the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And what's difficult about pawing the ground is when they wear spikes, you're not pawing the ground because that's not what's happening.
Yep.
So when You do it in, I would say, if the kid's running like a workout in like, regular running shoes, you can teach pawing the ground, but that's it. The reason why it proved to be incorrect is because what happens is when they actually run in cleats or in spike, cleats in the sport or in spikes, that pawing the ground action, you're 100% right, puts extra strain on the hamstring, and it's I'd rather you're right, pushing off the ground. What about
He'll be right back.
is the pull through part of it an unnecessary cue? Is it really just pushing off the ground and recovering? What is the kind of the backside mechanics to get them to move their legs faster and to come through a little bit quicker? What's some
Yeah.
cues there?
So the thing that I'm looking for during the pull through, so after toe off, I want the ankle to travel in as straight of a line as possible from toe off to max knee height on the front side. So I want there to just be just a train track. So that ankle comes off the ground and just comes straight up. So the thing that I look for is the shin of the leg that is coming through to be parallel to the ground at all times during the swing through phase. The toe should be pointing straight at the ground, and the shin should be parallel with the track as it's coming up and through. The thing that you will see where it is wrong is the toe is pointing behind the athlete, the swing, and then there's a slant from the ankle to the knee that is pointing down towards the track on the backside. That's going to create a long lever, and long levers are slow levers. So I forget what chapter in my book I talk about this, but it has been one of the biggest things that I look for sprinting technique to ensure that there's not undue pressure on the hip girdle muscles to pull the leg through.
Right.
Rather, you're just using your natural movement patterns to get the knee to where it should be on the front side.
Right. And I think that's what causes when the pull through is incorrect, that's what causes the hamstring that to insert into the gluteus maximus area, that insert where the hamstring attaches there, where they get those injuries where they're placing that strain from the pull through. As they really start to drive, it places incredible strain on that, whereas it should be more on the front side. My question on the front side mechanics, because of the pushing off the ground and the emphasis on the stronger front muscles, the quad and the hip flexor, there starts to become a strength thing with the hip flexor, and then the I can't think of what the muscle is called, but it's the higher part of the quad before you get to the before you get to the hip flexor. But that part can end up taking on a certain level of undue strain, and then a hip flexor as well could carry it if it's not strong enough. What is it? Important things that you can begin to do to strengthen that over time, because that takes a longer time to develop than the mid quad and the push off part of the quad. You know what I mean? Which obviously develops
isometrics in the
Okay.
in a big front side position. So I put, I think, like 7 videos on X a couple months ago about the different isometrics that I do every day in my sprinting practice. And the A iso hold is my favorite for specifically what you're talking about. You're just standing on one leg with a big knee on the front side, and then you're going to eventually go up on your toe on the foot that's on the ground. But just getting your body used to holding and being strong in that position. And then you can add load as the athlete gets advanced, but I never have had to, because most athletes aren't strong in that position anyway, so I don't want to overload it too much.
Right.
That's been my favorite way to go about addressing that specific muscle group. But also the incorrect pull through leads to the front foot, or the foot that is landing on the ground, landing too early, because there's a lack of flight phase because of how long the lever is on the backside. And then when that foot lands too early, again, you're going to have that undue strain on the hamstrings. But the way you know it's landing too early, or there's improper backside mechanics, is when the stance foot hits the ground, both knees should be right next to each other. So the knee that's coming through should be right next to the knee of the foot that's on the ground. And a lot of times you're going to see a gap. So the knee that is coming through is 2 to 3 to 5 inches behind the knee that's on the ground. And again, I have pictures of it on my account here. So just knowing what to look for as a sprint coach is so important. And a lot of times sprint coaches who I've talked to have said, I know something's wrong, I just don't know what's wrong. So that's kind of been my my crusade, is to help coaches know where to look as it pertains to the sprinting technique.
And I think that's why speed is really built over time, because those muscles take time to develop, like really, really time to develop. And you could develop a certain amount of it at 10 meters, a little bit. It takes more time to develop it at 20 meters. At 30 meters, it takes more time because of the load on it and the speed that it has to move. I think that's a really interesting thing with the exercises and the isometric holds. And it's funny because isometrics, like, there was a long time like people, it was a big deal. Then they got away from that, right, for a long time with on the opposite side of like explosive development, right? Like explosive development with like higher lows or trying to move the bar faster.
Yep.
Talk about what isometrics do to develop the muscle groups that are important for sprinting speed, or I mean, it could be a lot of different activities, but sprint and speed, since we're on that topic.
Isometrics are great because they allow you to pinpoint the positions you want your athletes to be strong in, because sprinting happens so fast. I mean, a touchdown happens in the blink of an eye, faster than a blink of an eye. It's not like you can, with pinpoint accuracy, train that movement. But with an isometric, when nothing is moving, but your body's in the positions that it's going to experience at that time, you can hold it and then allow the muscles to get stronger in that position as you hold it or as you add load, without the forces associated with sprinting. So sprinting when you are at max velocity is anywhere from 5 to 7 times your body weight in less than the blink of an eye on one appendage at a time. Those forces are never replicatable anywhere else other than sprinting. But with if you did that, your body would break down, as we've been talking about. But with isometrics, you can allow your athletes to get into the position where you want them to be strong in a non-impactful way, meaning a not force-laden, overburdensome force development manner that is significantly safer. But also, we already know how effective isometrics are in developing strength. So that's why I like isometrics so much for sprint work.
I think it's a great point. And I think, for the people in the sports specific world, like I've seen Tom House, I'm sure you're familiar with him, who talks a lot about, like, when he develops quarterbacks, he starts with these slow movements that they have to kind of hold in order to develop the strength of what they're going to have to eventually do dynamically. And it's funny because you see, like, so much focus. Let's go. If I go into the sports specific world for a second, you see so much focus on technique and dynamicness of a movement without building up the actual. And the shoulder is a great example of that. If you don't do that with the shoulder, obviously the hips are and your core are a much bigger area, right? It doesn't require the same isometric needs that your shoulder or an elbow and those kind of things obviously do need. But I noticed that with, like, Tom House is one of the things that I noticed. I noticed it even when you see Tom Brady and talk about how he breaks down throwing motion. And I've seen Drew Brees do this too. When they talk about it, they hold the area that they're discussing. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They actually hold the area so you feel what it's like. And it's funny because I watch what I call amateur, but they call themselves professional coaches. But
of course,
amateur coaches who a lot of people pay money to go to see. and they just they mimic like a drill that like Fernando Mendoza or Dak Prescott might do in his warm-ups, but they're not backing up further
Yeah.
to start with the actual hold areas of the movement, to develop the core strength components of it. And
Yep.
it's like when we talk about fascia, right? Like, okay, let's take the word fascia out of it because now it's so popular all of a sudden. What it is developing things isometrically that will help to develop all the areas surrounding, which fascia is one of it, surrounding the tendons and muscles and everything that's holding it all together, so you can then move dynamically and have the strength to then move dynamically. So one, like I love the fashion gives something everybody to talk about, and I think it's great, and I use it, but I really think that, like, hey, what is this? What is the purpose of it? Where can you develop these things? Well, that's the either slow movement holds or the isometric
Yep.
holds that develop those strength areas, because you don't feel it. And just someone who's been a sprinter myself, every problem I had, either was whether it was hamstring, it was because I was pulling the ground excessively because that became a thing.
Yep.
Okay. And then because I was a decathlete, when I went back and did, after I was done playing football, I went to decathlon and scored like 6,500 points in like 6 months. And then I realized I had to go get a job because I realized my maximum was going to be maybe I could get to 7,900, 7,800, but I was not going to be an Olympian. So I had to go get a job. But what I learned from that, coming out of being an athlete and playing football, and then going back to training in track and field and having to do each event at a very, very high level. What I learned from is there were different areas that became weaknesses. So the other area, which I talked about before, was the hip flexor and the upper part of the quad. If I was excessively pushing and didn't have the strength levels there, I would develop problems there and would have to back off. And the third part, which you have talked about when you're doing all of this, is the rest, because whether you're doing a little active rest or actual rest, that allows, after doing the isometrics or the slow movements or the sprinting, to then get recovery so you could do it again at a slightly higher level the next time. And I think that I would love for you to like talk about, because we've held you way too long, but talk about a progression that makes sense in that area.
Okay. That's hard because each individual athlete is so specific. So
that's why we have you on, because you're the greatest. So I figured you could answer that.
Okay. So I'll take you through the progression that I use with like my freshman female sprinters, for example, who have never had any sprint work at all. The first thing I do is that iso hold. So I'll put them in that big front side position. So just having them get their knee in the correct position. Another reason I love iso so much is it's not just a strengthening exercise, but helps connect the neural pathways of where their body should be in space. It helps create that proprioception, if we want to use fancy words. So not only are they're learning how to hold their knee up, get their knee to the correct position, but it's also teaching their body what it feels like when it's at the proper position. And then they hold it there. And then while they're holding it there, they're strengthening the muscles that it takes to hold in that position. Then from there, I will focus down to the foot and ankle complex, and I'll strengthen that. So either we'll have them be flat-footed or we'll have them go up on a heel. Once they get really good at iso holds, we do called iso switches. So we start with low and fast iso switches, where they start in a split stance, and then on my clap, they switch which foot is in front as fast as they possibly can, whilst not letting their heel hit the ground. And then they'll hold that position after the switch for probably 5 to 8 seconds. They'll switch again. So those are iso switches. So we'll go iso hold first. We'll continue through our tech portion of the day. We'll go low and fast iso switches. Then we'll go high and fast iso switches. So instead of low and fast, they jump up as high as they can, get a big split in the air, and then stick the landing as much as possible. And then from there, we do iso cycles. Well, we're going to do a full cycle in the air and then stick the landing again. So there's lots of different ways that I have used and progressed isometrics over the course of a sprinting season. But again, it's always going to be predicated on the preparedness level from a skill perspective and a strength perspective from the individual athlete. So all of those movements are on, if you scroll down in my X feed, I did a whole breakdown of every single one of them, how I coach it, how I teach it, what I look for. Just again, to try to be as helpful as possible, because I think isometrics, again, help so much with strength development, but also the skill development aspect to get the body in proper positions. And with that, I have to go.
Thanks so much, Doc. It was great having you on. Great
Yes.
discussion as always.
Good to
As
see you,
always.
gentlemen. Hey, both of y'all, let me know when the books come in. All right.
All right, we'll do
Thanks,
that.
Doc.
All right.
Yes.
Have a great day.
Enjoy your weekend, buddy.
He's gone.
He's got a million things. He's teaching summer classes too as well. So he's doing all kinds of stuff. It's awesome. I'm glad you can fit it in. I appreciate all the time he always gives us, because it's always really, really good feedback based off of what he's seeing, where he's in it. He's boots on the ground. You know what I mean? Like, he's always looking for the next whatever we can get done or make it happen. And, you know, always can back it up as well, which I think is like the best part of it, right? Like, he doesn't just say, oh, it's because of this, right? Like, he can prove it with academic basis, like, you know,
Right.
back for it and all that kind of, like, that's important as hell.
I agree, and I know I dived in some really specific things, but I wanted to take advantage of the time we have with him to ask some of those things, because,
No doubt.
you know, and obviously we talked a lot about sprinting, but, you know, it could apply to any sport that has a specific body part that's really important. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, and the reason why I brought up quarterback is just because Derek, the quarterback thing drives me nuts. It really, I watch it and I just think people, you know, try to mimic only what they see.
God, yeah.
That's the top guy, you know, and I
Well,
see
and
really
it's what they see posted on social media, right? It's all of that aspect of it too, Dave, that like goes into like, well, this is what this guy's doing. That's what this guy's doing. Like, you're not there. You're not on that level. Like, I understand some of it.
I don't
It's
think
so hard.
one of
you
my
know, I
beefs
just,
is
ugh.
one of my beefs is Tom Brady's throwing motion. I'm talking about purely the throwing motion. Is the basic throwing motion that everybody should do probably through their entire career, other than several people. Okay,
Mhm.
that can maybe, and obviously Tom Brady never had to progress beyond it, but like, you know, I do see like the, you know, the Aaron Rodgers style and the Mahomes style of throwing. These are guys that have built foundations, and I've heard Aaron Rodgers talk about it from all these years. And I watch video after video, and maybe this is because I'm a nerd, and maybe I'm the only one that ever gets affected by this. But I watch him and I just go, okay, so this kid's now throwing, and he pushes off the back foot fine, he rotates fine. His arm is so way out here. Like, just hold it out here yourself. Just hold the ball out here yourself. Okay? With no ball. Just hold it out like Aaron Rodgers does. All right? Who's an elite person who's been developing that shoulder for how many years? You know? Right? And originally he threw here, right?
Right.
Because he progressed to there over the years of development. He can get there. Mahomes can
Correct.
get there. Okay?
They can
Brady's
do
still-
things you can't.
Brady could do this, and you know what I mean. It doesn't even bother, because he's 6'5". Doesn't have to bother progressing out here, right? There's no need for him. But the movement, I just feel what that strain is on your shoulder. Just if you put your arm out, just feel what
Yeah.
that feels like.
No doubt. It's there all the time.
I feel like I'm a pretty strong person. Okay,
Right.
I'm holding
And
my
you
arm
feel
out
it.
here. And
Right.
I feel it. I feel it. Now do that 200 times with a throwing motion. What's
Right.
happening
Boom.
to the shoulder?
Over and over
Just holding
and
yourself
over.
out here. versus regular, right? Okay. And I get it. Do you get more whip? Do you get more follow? Sure, you do. You're also going to get a shoulder that's going to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
That's my general opinion. Okay. And you're not getting Aaron Rodgers' amount of therapy. You're not getting you're not getting $1 million on your body that you could do it and get strong enough to handle it. There's no way Aaron Rodgers is throwing an excessive amount of times in any kind of drill or warm up. There's no way. Okay. Because he knows what he needs to be able to do. He throws the minimum to keep him at where he needs to be, right? To continue to improve. And when I saw Tom House talk about how to start with quarterbacks and the movements and everything and how to develop the shoulders and the front arm and the back arm, it just makes so much sense. And everybody else just jumps right into like excessive throwing, literally excessive throwing. And
Well, that's because that's what sells, right? Is, hey, this is what we're doing. This is, we're out here. We're doing this. We're doing that. It's, oh, he look how many balls he's thrown, or that's just like the videos you make. Nobody wants to see like this. Work this.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to see that slow, steady progression of, you know what I mean? Like, we got to get here with it, or you know what I mean? Like, we start here to get to this. Nobody wants to see that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not what's conducive. It's just not what sells. It's not, people aren't willing to trust in the process and freaking, you know what I mean? Like, look at it and do all this other kind of stuff. Like, nobody wants to take the time. It's just not what they do.
And we know, okay, we know that for baseball coaches have learned this the hard way and still probably are learning it over time. But there are they've improved a lot in this area because of so many people who have thrown their arms out. You know what I mean?
100%.
But football trainers do not apply that. Do not.
Negative. They don't look at
They
that.
do not. Because the football's bigger and they don't feel like, oh, you could throw the arm out, you know, the way you would in baseball, which is smaller and everything. But I highly disagree. Like, I highly disagree with the excessive amounts of throwing. You know what I mean? Like, listen,
Absolutely.
if someone throws, let's say in a 7-on-7 tournament, okay, they do not need to throw the next day in training. Like,
no,
they
just threw a whole
100 balls. Threw 100 balls. You know, and at multiple different arm angles, in multiple different situations, they don't need to throw the next day.
And they did it without like thinking about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, they weren't even.
You didn't have to coach them.
Level of focus. No.
You might have said to him, "Hey, follow through a little more, rotate your hips a little more," but you're not overly correcting arm angles or anything like that. Like, you're really focusing on improving them the way that we used to improve them, which was rotate your hips. Okay, push off a little bit harder off your back foot. Finish the throw with your hand. I mean, simple things, right? Because in a game, you're not going to be able to be like, hey, you know, your arm has to be out here more. No, right?
It's the last thing you're coaching in a game.
Last thing you're coaching, but we spend all our time.
Maybe when they come to the sideline, you give them a little like, hey, man, make sure your arm angle is like this or whatever. Just a reminder, or that's something in pregame. You're like, hey, make sure it's this, make sure it's that. You're not doing that on the regular. Like, what are we talking about? Right? Like, and if you are, something's wrong.
I just think that like you end up putting yourselves in situations where you're not understanding why under pressure, meaning when you get blitzed and you have to get rid of the ball quickly, why you can't. They don't understand. And then the players are like, how come I don't get recruited at a high level? I'm really good. I'm like, yeah, you're really good when no one's rushing you. You're really good when no one's near you. Okay? How are you? You know, when Aaron Rodgers talks about like how he's almost off the ground because he's pushing off so powerfully and quickly off both feet, and that's what he's learned. Yeah, he's learned to push off from the ground and rotate the hips.
He's done it over, but he's also done it like over and over the right way. You know, like
exactly like that. That has to be more of the focus and not like, we evade the rush. This is going to sound crazy, but you could do all the evade the rush drills you want, and you could practice. You need to practice them a little bit here and there, obviously, so to get a little feel of it. I'm going to tell you, this is the truth. There are guys that can evade the rush, and there are guys that can't. And I'm talking about
Uh,
not just scrambling. I'm
totally
talking
agree.
about within the pocket. There are guys that have a natural feel for that, and there are guys that shit their pants when people are
100%.
coming out.
No
And
doubt. It's why being a 7-on-7 quarterback is very, very, very different than quarterbacking when somebody's trying to come rip your face off.
it's very, very different. And I've seen kids make the mistake of throwing a ball because they got rid of the ball early and they maybe made a bad throw, but still had the ability to get rid of the ball early. Like, I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like, you're getting rid of the ball. Now let's just make your accuracy. Because a lot of kids, when that situation, guess what happens? They just get sacked. They get sacked, or they're sprinting out of the pocket as soon as possible, and and then they're like, why am I not getting recruited? I'm like, well, okay, the guy who could sprint out of the pocket and take off and run down the field, aka Lamar Jackson, I can count to you how many there are in the United States. Probably 5 in the whole United States. That, I'm not saying they're as good as Lamar Jackson, but I'm saying like that can do it, and when they progress down the field are so fast that they're picking up 15 yards at a clip. There's probably 5 or 6 guys in the whole country that are like that. Okay. Most of you are going to have to be able to make quick decisions and good quick decisions, whether it's rolling or in the pocket. And so you have to develop everything from within that fashion, which is really like the muscles and
Muscle
those
memory.
things that develop over time. But the trying to throw like Aaron Rodgers now because he discovered how he likes to throw the ball. I'm like, you're not strong enough. You're none of you are strong enough. None of you.
Right.
Like,
and that's again, that's the build-up aspect of you got to go through and try and do some of these things. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just it's not an everyday type of, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have a process to when you're doing this and when you're not doing this, right? Or you don't do this until you can do this type of thing.
I once again in the QB land have gone away from, I don't want to work with anybody anymore. So I'm not working with anyone. I just don't think, and I can't get access. I can't get access to Tony. So Tony would be, but I'm not working with anyone. Not because they don't do anything good. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying I don't need all that. I need you to develop. And I need you to develop your mind as a quarterback. I need to develop your body as a athlete, just like a sprinter needs to develop their body as an athlete. A running back needs to, and where you could do like with running backs like the crazy drills, and it probably does benefit them. You know what I mean? Because that's what they are doing a lot of in the course of a game. You know what I mean? They're doing a lot of it in the course of a game. So I think it makes a ton of sense. But I think, just like a quarterback, I think the same thing happens at receiver. I watched Justin Jefferson talk about these route things. And you know what? Like, he's like, you got to get down the field. Dude, it's the same stuff we talked about. Closing the gap on the defensive back. Like, that's the key. Not making a move when he's 3 yards away from you and he could just still recover and and get back into position. And receiver, the same thing has happened in this aspect. Like, you have to get down the field to run your route. Like, I can't throw you the ball if you're still at the line of scrimmage. Making a dance move.
I don't have the time to sit here and wait for you to get clear or get out and go. Like, it's just not conducive, right?
Those guys who do that are going to go from catching 30 balls to 15 balls to 5 balls a year because the quarterback is sitting there under duress and he does not have time to make that as soon as if I'm a quarterback and I have my progression, and let's say that first guy's my progression, he's making these moves. I'm like, he's not there yet. Can't throw it, right?
Can't.
Can't throw
And
it.
then if you do, right, you're in the wrong.
You're gonna throw it to the other team. Is what's gonna happen.
Why were you holding on to the ball? Why did you make that thing? Why did you? Well, coach, like he didn't go anywhere, right? Like that's my option. You know what I mean?
Yes, and that's a huge when you run a crossing route, for example, in the mesh concept, you have to make a immediate quick move and get across immediately. Like there is no time for you to make two moves and then get across. The quarterback sack. The mesh takes a long time. On a wide sail, you can't make 5 moves and get across to the opposite hash and be a reasonable receiver. On a comeback route or a curl route, you can't make 5 moves and still get to 10 yards or 12 yards and come back in one direction or the other, inside or outside. It's not going to happen. I don't care how fast you are, And I see Justice. I love that Justin Jefferson. I love that Justin Jefferson has the flight school.
Yes, yeah. Because I mean, look, because now you're hearing it from a guy that they see on Sunday, that they kind of respect, that they kind of look at as like an example, a model, right? You're hearing him tell these guys these things, whereas a lot of these other guys will just go to whatever trainer and do whatever and think that's the right thing or how to do it, right? When actually this guy he's living it at the highest level. He's someone that you do respect, and you kind of see it, and he's saying it. So if it doesn't process or get to you through your head at that point, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually you're going to be in a situation where, okay, I'm using all this, I'm doing all this, but I'm not catching any balls. I'm not even getting any targets, right? Like this isn't working,
And how about the fact that nobody's playing man, period, right, other than a few teams? No one's playing man. So what are you dancing 100%. For? They're zoned. They're not even looking at you.
And look, and I talked with a high school head coach here in Jersey, like high level guy, won a ton of games, like at where he was. He's retired now, but he was talking about like, dude, like we never play man. He's like, with the level of whatever the athletes we were seeing on a week to week basis, right? If I were to put my kids in a man type of situation, like we would have lost every game by 50 points because we just got out athleted every game. So you're seeing some of that too. Like you got to know when to use it. And for the most part, even when you're going to use something like that, that's not what you do every play. 100%. Guys don't know. They're not being coached as to when to use the proper tools within that toolbox. They're just doing it because they're told, like everybody's telling them to do it, or they see somebody do it and it works and it's whatever. And it's like, this isn't what we're talking about, man. Like it's frustrating. Luckily, like, where I'm at, the guys use it when it's necessary. It's not an everyday tool. Once you kind of get them through that head, once you get it through their head of like, hey, this is just something to utilize when this happens, right? And I make them aware of that, right? With game plan and doing all that kind of stuff of like, all right, hey, we're going to need to, hey, like this is a team that plays a lot of man, so we're going to need to work releases. And then throughout the week, hey, all right, individual, 5 minutes, we got to work releases, right? And these are the ones we're going to use. And if he does this, you do that. And if he does this, you do that, right? Quarterbacks, look, hey, we're going to have to work releases now, right? Like your timing is going to have to be changed a little bit. Hey, if you read this and he punches here, he's going here, right? Like you got to coach all of those little things up so that everybody's on the same page. And then you got to rep it. Not only an individual, but you got to stress it in 7-on-7. And then when you go to team and you got to push it on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, you're polishing it up. And then, hey, pregame this week, we're going to get a release drill in. Why? Because in 5 minutes, this guy's going to be rolled up in your face, pressing the shit out of you, and you got to get off. But guess what?
And it's about leverage.
Sideline to sideline. You're going vertical, right? Like
it's speed, strength, and leverage, right?
Absolutely.
You have to be able to create leverage.
But that's and yes, and some guys especially at the high school level, right? They're just better athletes, right? Like so they can create
that's
that
different. Yes.
easy. But that's a whole that's not. We have to all coach it to do it the right way. Otherwise, this guy's doing this guy's doing that, this guy's doing that. Coach, this isn't working. Well, buddy, no shit. We're not. You're using it at the wrong time, right? Like you're not supposed to be using this. And at the end of it, the object right now is to just get vertical so the quarterback can throw the ball. You know what I mean? So I think it's got to be a progression of when and when not to. And it's not something that you just, hey, we're going to do a release drill today because,
and knowing which
drill because knowing when the man is coming, right? Like you don't do a release drill knowing they're going to be a cover 2 corner.
There's so many kids that have so many great moves at the line, and
right, great.
They're not good. So like they're not good.
It's like, yeah, like I'm glad you can get a release, but guess what? When the ball is thrown to you, you don't catch it.
Or even if you can get a release, you release to 1 yard. So what? Now I'm second inning.
Or it took you 10 minutes to release, and now the poor quarterback's sitting there like pumping, and he gets drilled in the face because you're doing this. Like, just take how we coach.
You might as well jog the route. It's no different than jogging around if you do all that. So,
listen, just stand there. I'd rather you stand there and not waste any energy making moves. Like, at least maybe next play you'll do it, right? So if you're going to just stand there. I don't even care. Don't move. Pretend like you're flash faking. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So
I think that, yeah.
You do it enough, you're not going to be out there. So it is what it is. You're going to play yourself out. Fine. I'll find somebody else to listen and do what they're supposed to.
You want to know what the crazy complaint that I see in football and even other sports, and this is going to sound crazy, and speed even. Yeah, I'm like, well, you can, this guy or that guy does it. Yeah, but there's really no good coaches anymore in speed. There's really no good coaches anymore in wait a minute, there's a million wide receiver coaches. What are you talking about? Thousands. Yeah, but like, like he's not really paying attention when he shows something and he's not paying attention. Yes, because what's happening is the coaching aspect of the trainers have become more. I was good at this myself, and now I'm going to teach you what I was good at.
Correct.
It's not finding.
You teach what you know.
It's not. Yes, and training in the beginning, early phases of. I'm not saying they were better. Those guys were, in order to get clients, had to really become an expert. Okay. Yeah. In order for me to get speed clients, I had to separate myself from Bill. I had to separate myself from Bill in some way, shape, or form. I had to do something that was different or better or have a knowledge base that was, in similar fashion, right? Same thing, like, because you had Bill, you had Joe DeFranco, you had Donnie, you had Chuck Mound, okay? You had Steve Bianco back in the day, who's now in the NIL world, right? Like, these guys all had to be. It was hard to get clients. Let me rephrase. It was hard to get clients because it wasn't as known, right? And then the boom of all of it. Now it became easier to get clients, but harder for people to understand why I'm there, right? So it's. And that's why people jump around, because this person's teaching this thing and this guy's teaching another different thing. It's like, that's why I like having Martinez on, because we can get right to the brass tacks of what works. Like,
yep.
What's the brass tacks of what actually works? Tom House, what starts to begin the early phases of developing a quarterback? 0 to do with throwing the ball. I saw 0. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because as kids grow and their size and what Josh Allen could do with a ball at 6'5", 250 is going to be different than what Kyler Murray can do with the ball at 5'10",
absolutely
200, right? Like, they're going to be able to do different things with the ball. So, and they have to play to what is their assets. Otherwise, they're not going to be successful. So the cookie cutter, like making everybody throw the same. And it's funny because I have people that tell me things that I like and I respect, and I'm just like, you don't make sense anymore to me. Like, you just don't make sense anymore. Like, I know I sound arrogant when I say this, but I'm like, I just don't think guys are trying to research the best ways to do things. I just don't think they are. I think they're overloaded with information, and they just take what the either they know or the best pro athlete that they see doing it, and
Right.
let's try it. You know what I mean? Because if you were to watch Justin Jefferson play and then see him teach it, it's probably looks differently. If you were just to pull from what he does it looks like he actually is able to do in a game. But when he shows you what he did, he's really doing the fundamentals of wide receiver play. That's really what he's working on. And the other stuff is grown out of that, meaning he learned how to do a specific thing at this time, not the other way around. He didn't learn to do the fancy things and then learn how to run a route. He learned how to run a route
No doubt.
and added one or two things that were work for his body in his route running that gives him a chance to separate from somebody. I see this all this other stuff, and it just, I mean, there's no solution. Just like everything else in youth sports, I love that Greg Olson is having all these people on. I love the discussion. I feel like there's more and more like pushback, and a lot of obviously old school football coaches have talked about this for a long time. It's like, yes, all the other stuff is good, but first you have to take care of the most important things.
Has to
And if
be a foundation.
you have to have a foundation before you get to all these other things. And
Mhm.
I think that's I just think it's I don't know. It drives me nuts because this is the time of year when everything comes out where everybody's like, you know, because the summer months is a big time for everything in sports as far as like development. And I just think that we're so caught in getting away from things that can actually help the athlete over the long haul, and instead of the Instagram thing only looks good.
Brutal.
Like it
Optics.
just it's really optics, and all these athletes are getting in a trap. It was the same trap that they got into with recruiting when everybody posted who was giving them offers, and then eventually that faded out because no one believed it anymore. No one believed
Yep.
it was an offer. So now
And
you
that's what
only
it comes
really,
down to.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. No one believed it was an offer. And, I say the college coaches the same thing. Stop inviting kids to camp. I know it makes you money that you really have. I understand at the younger ages, you don't know anything yet about them. But like the older guys who really are trying to figure it out, let's say they're 2027, right? That would be 2027 next year.
hmm This is 2026. Yeah, so next year is 2020, class of 2027. Yep.
inviting
They're
2020
juniors.
inviting 2027 kids that you're not going to offer at all.
It's yeah, that's robbery.
It's that just makes no sense, dude. Like, and if a kid still
Robbery.
chooses if a kid chooses to go because he wants to go, that's completely different. That's on him. but
Absolutely.
but saying come to camp, you're not going to offer him. And there are guys that I really like that do it, guys that I really like, but they do
I
it
think
because
that's the nature of the beast.
I just think it's just unnecessary.
Or they're being
Because
told to do it.
yeah, they're being told to do it because they want to. And obviously they want to, get if they can make a couple $1,000s extra out of it, for some of these coaches, it's worthwhile.
Right, which also sucks too that they have to be in the situation to kind of go and do that because they don't have the time or they're just not getting paid like whatever to do that.
D1
But
coaches don't
also,
need to do it.
but I'm also
D1
like
coaches
this, Dave,
don't need to do it.
you know what you signed up for, man. Like,
Yeah. Listen, when you're a freshman or a sophomore and you go to these things, absolutely, no doubt. Roll the
100%.
dice.
That's different. Absolutely. But
Roll
when
the
you're
dice as a young
when
kid.
you're listen, when you've already played your senior year and you're going to camps or you're playing 7-on-7 or you're doing some of those things, like, I don't know. To me, I just have a different outlook on that. I don't think you should be playing on a club 7-on-7 team. And look, and we do it with our guys, right? Like we
Yeah.
have guys that have already done it. Like we do it. I don't think that's the best move for you. You should be hyper focused on getting bigger, faster, stronger. We're communicating with the school that you're going to. Give me your workout plan. Let me start my thing. Hey, can I want to get in, like, let me get on campus in June. If that's not a thing at those, to some of those
Absolutely.
D2s or D3s, right? Like, engulf me in your playbook. What's your spring ball schedule? If you're in a distance, hey, I'll be able to get to every weekend practice. Like, engulf yourself in that culture, right? And if you're not at a school yet, then you better go figure out one and get in there as soon as you can. Because otherwise, buddy, like, you ain't going to be doing what you think you're going to be doing come fall because you're holding out because you think you're better. Like the writing is on the wall, and a camp sure as hell ain't going to do it, right? If you go to a camp now and you're a 2026, they're going to laugh at you. What are you doing here? Like,
Are people doing that? Are people?
Kids are doing it.
No way.
Hey, yes, because they're going, Dave, and they're saying, hey, I'm reclassing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Which is a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
It's like, bud, I don't think you're going to the NFL, but you're gonna reclass or you're gonna prep school or you're gonna just do something like, hey, okay.
So that
I get it. Like, it's a
different
thing.
There's times when you should do it and there's times when you shouldn't. Is my best thing.
Agreed.
I feel like if you're a senior,
and that's all I can really say about it too. It's gotta be a thing.
Well, I think if you're going to go to like if you're going to a prep school because academically you struggled but you were good enough, okay, 100%. You're using that like as a
No
what do you
doubt.
call it? Makes sense. If you are doing it because you want to increase your recruiting, if you do it and you're not one of the 5 guys that the school is going to use their slot on, you know what I'm saying? Like they usually have a certain number of grad guys they're going to use a slot on. If they don't use their slot on you, not they still all pay, most of them, but if they don't use their slot on you, it probably doesn't make sense. Okay? Because it's probably they probably don't think that they're going to be able to change your recruiting status. So
No doubt.
and then you get into these like fly by night reclass places. I just think that's just go play it. What that's a waste of time. Like unless you're a bad student, okay. The reason why I say a bad student or something happened in the I don't there's things that could happen.
There's always something. Yes.
But let's say you were you might have been offered by, let's say, Syracuse, and then you didn't qualify academically, and you just need to go to one of these places for 9 months to get yourself in, a better spot. I think that makes sense. But because you're not happy with what you got. If you were D3 out of regular high school, you are not going to not be D3 next year when you're prepping.
100%.
So what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? If you were a scholarship guy, let's say you got FCS offers, and I would never take this risk. I would just take the FCS offer. But let's say you were FCS offered guy and you reclass and you use one of the slots on you. I could see it in specific situations, meaning, I don't know, you went to Saddlebrook High School, right? Or Butler, small school. And you were a great player. People were like, what kind of level of competition are you playing against? You still got FCS offers, right? I could see rolling the dice potentially there. I wouldn't roll that dice, but I could understand it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
Yeah.
you know, but I could see it in those instances, right? You went to a small school, maybe it didn't get you, you know, maybe they were questioned, maybe some of the players you played against level, but you were good enough to still get an offer. I could see it. I don't. It was a risk I wouldn't take because you could get injured, right? But I could see it. I mean, I think that there's a lot of like the reality is in football, there's not a lot of high school athletes getting recruited at the highest level. People have to start to understand that, and that if you don't understand that it's a minor league system now, then you're going to be like all these other people who just transfer and are gone from
Well, again,
sports.
if you don't understand what you're getting into and understanding all those aspects, and now with social media and all that, like you can go and do your research and ask the right questions and do all that, but you have to do that part too. Like you have to do that aspect of it where I think a lot of people just kind of like expect it to just come and happen. And no, you need to like treat recruiting just like you treat practice. Like you got to go into it that hard with that type of mentality to go and you know what I mean? Like it's got to be a daily thing over and over and over. And you got to, you know, educate yourself on the constant changes that are happening over and over and over. And then just, you know, it's really, you have to put that much effort into it. It just doesn't come to you because quote, like you're a good player.
Right. Right. There's no doubt
So
about it. Very very interesting stuff. I'll let you go. Great podcast.
we got a busy week next week too. I mean, we're on Monday if you can or you can't, Memorial Day with check him out on TikTok, Coach Michael Burt, right? He's got a lot of motivational stuff, a lot of good stuff. He's pretty big on TikTok. I mean, but I'm curious to talk to him because I was surprised when I reached out and he actually responded back. Right? It's kind of one of those like, yeah, let's just throw it out there, and and he responded and wanted to kind of come on, which was pretty cool. I mean, he's got 41,000 followers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that
Drive, business growth, all that kind of stuff, like talking about that stuff, the motivational stuff. Tuesday as well is a guy that I've been trying to get on for months. He's an outside linebackers coach in Texas at Forney High School, but he also does his videos of a day in the life of a Texas high school football coach every like daily. He's got a big following with that and does a podcast with his brother. That's pretty cool because he coaches in Texas. The brother is a now newly appointed DC in South Carolina, which is pretty cool. And then we'll have another offensive guy on, Andrew Britt, to talk about. He's big on keeping the quarterback under center on Wednesday. And then Friday, Coach Tony Brinson, who's a long time, he's currently the DC at Nichols, but has been all over. He's wild. He's awesome.
yes,
So that'll be a good one.
that'll be
He's
a
a
good one.
lot.
Tony.
He's a lot old. He's a lot of old school.
He's out of the Northeast now, huh?
He's at Nichols.
Oh, Nichols in Massachusetts. New Hampshire.
Yep.
No.
Massachusetts. And we've had their head coach on before, Coach Marino. This will be, I think, his second year as a DC there. But he still recruits Jersey and stuff. He's a wildcat, man. He's a wildcat. So, and he's been, I want to say, maybe four. I mean, he's been at a lot of places, like higher level. So, for him to be at Nichols now is, I don't want to say a step down, but I just want to say like he's been at other places where, you know, he's lived that life of, hey, it's this type of college football, it's this, but so that should be interesting. But enjoy your weekend, buddy.
All right, you too. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, and I guess I'll see you probably on Monday.
Memorial Day at the Jersey Shore, buddy. Here we go.
Oh gosh. Well, at least they got ahead of the impromptu parties.
Oh yeah, they shut that shit down.
Yes. Yes, they're not playing it with that stuff. So, all right, man. I'll
Nope.
talk to you later.
All right,
Have a
buddy.
great
Talk
weekend.
to you later.
All right, bye.
Thanks, man.